Hello again, and thanks for staying with us on Election Brief. I am Araba Kumsin. The courts today have been quite busy adjudicating cases brought against the Electoral Commission, and not just by political parties. We begin with the Supreme Court, which today instructed the Commission to make available to parties contesting this year's election collation forms at all 275 centres of the Commission across the country. The court also asked the EC to create a portion on the collation forms for all parties, including returning officers, to append their signatures after results are collated. So how did we come to this point? Well, it began with a suit filed by a private legal practitioner, Kwesi Nyametiasie-Eshan, who asked the Apex Court to declare the failure of the EC to make clear provisions in CI 94 prescribing detailed steps that the returning officer at the Constituency Collation Centre shall methodically take to collate the total valid votes cast for each of the contesting presidential candidates, and to enter some on the relevant forms, namely the certificate to be endorsed on the writ. And according to Mr. Nyametiasie-Eshan, he took the action to avoid the possibility of another election petition. After the ruling, his lawyer Akutan Paul told the media the court's ruling was a victory for democracy.
Our point is that because the law didn't provide for the signatures of the returning officers at the Constituency Collation Centre and the candidates or their agents, any form could subsequently be changed and they'll fill in these are the results. So the signatures are to authenticate those documents, and the Supreme Court granted those orders. As regards some of the confusion in the drafting, the Supreme Court directed that all the parties, they recognized that there were clear confusion. There's clear confusion in the drafting, but their view was that these are drafting errors that can be corrected by the court. And the court has directed that we, all the parties, meet and work out the corrections and report back to the court so that it can, then the court can rule on it, and then that becomes the basis for the conduct of the 2016 election. So I think that all Ghanaians should be very happy that we are moving towards an electoral process that is free, fair, transparent, and credible. No, the copies of the collation sheets, this is also very critical, will be given to all the parties, both for parliamentary and presidential. The important thing is that if the parties or the candidates have copies of the collation sheet results, and they have copies of the polling station results, they can easily check whether what is recorded in the polling station results is what is on the collation sheet, and therefore what is transferred to the EC at the head office for the presidential election is the correct one. So this is a very, very important decision of the court, and I think that Ghanaians should hold high the Supreme Court for coming to this important decision.
And we stay in the courts because an Accra High Court has struck out Nana Kunedu-Agyeman Rawlings' suit challenging her disqualification by the Electoral Commission as a presidential candidate. The NDP presidential hopeful was disqualified along with 11 other presidential nominees because they failed to meet some requirements of the electoral laws ahead of the December polls. Presiding Judge George Kumsin, no relation of mine, described the NDP suit as incompetent. Let's get some more understanding into what happened in court today. My colleague Malik Dabo joins me now. So Malik, tell us, why was the suit or writ thrown out?
Well, you know, Nana Kunedu went to court and she was seeking to do two things. She was seeking to enforce her fundamental human rights. She also wanted a judicial review of the EC's decision to disqualify her. Right. You know that the EC disqualified her because one of her subscribers, one Salifu Abdullahi, was said to have engaged in multiple registration. The EC said that to that extent, this guy was not a qualified voter. He was not a properly registered voter, and therefore was not qualified to endorse her forms, but he did. So they disqualified her on the basis of that. Right. So she went to court. She was seeking a judicial review of the EC's decision, and she was also seeking to enforce her rights, fundamental human rights. Now, when we talk about judicial review, The Electoral Commission is an administrative body. When administrative bodies take decisions such as these, and those decisions do not go in a person's favor, the law provides that the person can go to court and argue that the EC did not follow due process in arriving at this decision, and to that extent the EC was unfair. So I want you to reverse this decision so that fairness will be done to me.
Right.
That's an administrative process. And so that is judicial review.
Right.
At the same time, they are also arguing that, look, the EC abused my fundamental human rights. We want you, the court, to assert this fundamental human rights. The court's argument is those are two separate matters. If you want a judicial review, that's a separate matter in law. If you want to enforce a fundamental human right, that's a separate matter again. You can't put two separate matters together and come to court. And to that, on the basis of that, the law, the judge argues, does not permit you to put those two matters together and come to court. It was on the basis of that that the case was struck out.
I see. So is this the end of the road for the NDP?
Oh, absolutely not. Because remember that the merits of her arguments have not been gone into. This is just procedural matters. Some other judge, I am aware, could have overlooked this procedural matter and decided to have gone into the merits of the matter. For some reason, this judge decided to strike out the case on the basis of this. I am aware that they are in the process of filing, and in fact the party itself has said that they are in the process of going back to release this case, which means they will pick one of the two routes. Either they will go to court and seek a judicial review on its own, or they will go to court and say there was a breach of her fundamental rights to contest this election as a presidential candidate on the ticket of the National Democratic Party, and therefore her rights should be asserted and re-established. So if they choose either way, they will go to court and file. I am aware that they are in the process of doing that. If they don't file today, latest by tomorrow, they will file.
Indeed, that is quite true. They are in the process of filing. And the party earlier today issued a statement. It's signed by the General Secretary of the party, Mohammed Frimpong. And what he says is that this morning we were in court for a ruling on the preliminary objection to our suit against the Electoral Commissioner and the Attorney General. On 7 objections raised by the EC, 6 were dismissed. The court, however, upheld one objection that we were not permitted to ask for judicial review and enforcement of fundamental human rights in the same case, even if all the facts and circumstances are the same. While we may disagree with the court on this point, we respect the ruling. We were even more gratified about the judge's closing statement that, quote, the door is still open, end quote. We have therefore instructed our lawyers to immediately file an action to enforce our rights that we believe the Electoral Commission has blatantly violated, leading to its decision not to accept our nomination forms and then disqualify our candidates from contesting in the 2016 presidential election. We assure all Ghanaians and our teeming supporters that this matter is not over, not by a long shot. We shall continue to fight to ensure that persons in public offices respect the constitution of the land and laws that are passed to protect ordinary citizens from arbitrariness, capriciousness, and prejudice, and actions that breach the due process of the law and requirements imposed by the law.
And Frimpong is quite right, because when they filed the case last week, the EC's lawyer, Thaddeus Sori, was arguing that, first of all, there were problems with this suit. The suit was incompetent and they ought not to have brought it in the manner that they did. So Thaddeus Sori was seeking that the court should dismiss this. In fact, there were other issues that he raised with this case, and as Frimpong points out, a lot of them were dismissed, but the one saying that they should strike out the case was upheld.
Yes.
Of course, the door is not closed. They are going back to court, and let's see which side they choose to argue, whether on the human rights front or judicial review.
Okay, and we hope we wait to see the outcome of that particular case. Now, it's a war of words between the presidential candidate of the National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, and wife of the New Patriotic Party running mate, Samira Bawumia, as they battle it out in the Eastern region to win the hearts and minds of voters there. As you may be aware, the president has since Tuesday been campaigning in various parts of the region, promising to, among others, improve the water supply to the people there. Mrs. Bawumia, who is also campaigning in the region, jabbed Mr. Mahama, saying he has failed to address the Damongo water crisis. Well, the president isn't too happy with the NPP running mate's wife, and as he campaigned in Chebi today, he used the opportunity to set the record straight. Listen.
Yeah, the foundation almost is building their social infrastructure first. Then after the social infrastructure, you put the other superstructure on top of it. It is also now share a juma ya efa infrastructure home. Yanka say ensure abra ya bae na ensure Ghana for ensure no. Now 58% of people in Ghana had access to clean drinking water, and then 76% of Ghanaians have access to clean drinking water. Sa empuntu no yenyim. It is Osha, Esiakwa, Chebi, any towns that walk in small town water systems. Emma Omunina Anka Obi Eka Bibi or say or call me chrome near news you know. And I'm saying, oh, and Anka me Obi Fufra Anka microphone news you know. Meka say any Anka Siona Medeba Hano, Medeba Comomo, or say any anasa. We are Mampenia, Obia. Na niba kasano on tiasie at the Krontia Damango Krodiano Enisio. I was sure, but it's only free from underground water. Now during Hamatan, no underground water, no a coffin, and it won't be pumping and masro. Enti na enso Damango for. Enti afeni battery ensure every 60 kilometers black water. Near train about Damango, it's be Amad Damango ensure. Enti we say nipa koka on tiasie at the Kronti, the technical reasons you don't understand anything, you can't think far. Enti ubi wano na woka. Yes say nipa ode nano edo nkase ebi one da. Ebi say nano and ode do. Sanso na yakohwe footballer. Omo spectator stands no. Omo ball no chain omo play omo players no po. Every say Obiena no okaso anka me anka mebo no say. So dey fa no coach that park no so share so betimi abo ball na.
So President Mahama there jabbing the NPP running mate's wife, Samira Bawumia, over her claims about the Damongo water crisis. Well, regional correspondent Kofi Sian, who is following the president, joins us on the line to tell us more of what the president has been saying. Kofi, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Very quickly, give us a quick translation of what the president was saying.
Well, the president was responding to Samira Bawumia about some statement that the wife of the vice flag bearer of the NDP had made in Damango in the northern region. That is the home region of President John Dramani Mahama. According to Samira Bawumia, President Mahama has neglected the people and he hasn't been able to provide water for them. But President John Mahama said that these are technical issues that that Samira Bawumia has to be abreast herself with before she opens her mouth to talk. He said that, for instance, there is a particular issue with that area, and that during the dry season, the water has to sink below a certain level. So they have to apply a certain mechanism before they can ensure that water can be tapped from the ground to the residents. So he has been telling the woman that she should be very particular about what she says, and that she should be abreast with herself with whatever happens in an area before she talks about it.
Very well, Kofi. But you know, we know the president is in Chebi today. Chebi is, of course, the hometown of the NPP flag bearer, Nene Akufo-Addo, and not surprisingly, he draws a lot of support there. Tell me, how has the president been received there?
Well, she has been received massively by the residents there. Myself, I was surprised because Chebi used to be very hostile to the NDP in previous elections. But this time around, when President John Mahama got there, people received him, they welcomed him, and told him that now they are for development. So if the president is bringing development to the area, they support him. The president took the opportunity to inaugurate or open the Kebi Town Road. It's a 5-kilometer town road that the government has done for the people of Kebi and its environs.
All right, many thanks. Kofi Siao is Eastern Regional Correspondent and bringing us that update on the president's campaign in the Eastern region. Today he's been in Kejebi and he's been talking about what the government is doing to improve water supply in that area and many parts of the country. We're taking a short break. You're watching Election Brief. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. Earlier, we were talking about the president being in the Eastern region where he's campaigning. His main opponent, Nane Akufo-Addo of the NPP, is in the Volta region, KJB to be specific, and there he's been telling voters there that it's not a surprise that the NHIS has collapsed under the Mahama administration. He recounted how the NDC MPs, including the then Bole Bamboy MP John Mahama, walked out of Parliament when the bill for the NHIS was laid in the House, and that he also assured that when he wins, he will revive the NHIS. Let's go to voting school now. And in our voter education segment today, we focus on the presiding officer. Now, as a registered voter, you're expected to cast your ballot at the polling station supervised by a presiding officer. And did you know that the presiding officer has the right to remove you from the station under certain circumstances? Fifi Kumsin tells us more in today's edition of the Voting School.
The presiding officer shall maintain order at the polling station assigned to them. He or she may authorize a security officer to immediately remove from a polling station a person who behaves in a manner to disrupt the proceedings at the polling station, or a person who fails to obey the lawful orders of the presiding officer, and that person shall not be allowed to enter the polling station on the polling day without the permission of the presiding officer, where the person removed is an agent of a candidate or a political party. The presiding officer shall immediately inform the candidate or the representative of the political party who appointed the agent to replace this agent. The powers conferred by this regulation shall not be exercised to prevent a voter who is entitled to vote at a polling station from having the opportunity to vote at that polling station.
Now, earlier we brought you that story about the NPP running mate's wife, Samira Bawumia, sparring, if you like, with the NDC flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama. Well, Samira, who often comes across as a soft-spoken person, may surprise you with her determination and resilience as you get to know her better. Correspondent Maxwell Kudako sat down for a chat with her, and it appears she's quite like her husband, as she often resorts to the use of the word incompetent. Watch.
Of the doubts, I believe, after the unfortunate demise of the late President Mills, and he's proven to be incompetent. Unfortunately, people say he's a nice guy, but that's not what we need. We need a competent leader. We need a leader who's not corrupt, who's not coming to dissipate state resources. The mismanagement is killing people. You go to hospitals, mothers are dying, lying on the floor. I'm a mother, I'm a woman, I see these things and they hurt me. You see people who've been laid off at work. They're students who've gone through 4 years of university. They're sitting at home 3 years, 4 years, no jobs. Nurses are working for years without being paid. Civil servants, public servants. It's just a mess everywhere. And Ghanaians have learned, Ghanaians have figured that NDC is no good for them. The leadership they have now cannot help. We're suffering and we need change. And if somebody after 8 years tells you I've laid a foundation, and it tells you the building will take like 100 years. So for me, we need somebody who can do something in 4 years, come back to the people and say, renew my mandate, rather than say, you've given me 8 years, I was still figuring it out, give me another 4 years, let me see. I think it can only get worse under John Mahama. So let's do the right thing and put another done before that.
As you tour the country and in the Eastern region, as a woman, have you encountered any challenge campaigning across the constituency. What are those challenges?
No, not many challenges. It's no different from any other region. Some regions are even worse to campaign in because of the poor infrastructure. I've been to several regions now. I'm going to cover the whole of this country by the end of the campaign, and I've done it before, so I've kind of gotten used to it. But I also have to commend the security agencies. The police have given us protection as we go along, and so I feel secure. The people of Ghana are receiving me well. It's encouraging, and I'm happy that our message is going down well. And inshallah, December 7th, they're going to vote for us. But to the good people of Ghana, if you haven't heard, maybe this is the time you should. But leadership is about commitment. It's about wanting good for your people. It's about wanting to lift people up, not bring them down. It's about competence. It's about appointing the right people. And we haven't seen that in this government. We've seen square pegs and round holes. We've seen people who have just run their ministries down, people who haven't done what they've been mandated to do. We've seen our resources being dissipated. A lot of the loans we've taken haven't been utilized correctly. We haven't prioritized our projects. Our nurses are not being paid. Patients are dying in the hospital. I have a personal experience from a family member. We've all been through a difficult time. Look at this energy challenge we're having. We still haven't dealt with it after so many millions have been sunk into this energy sector. So there is so much. This nation has promise. We have resources. We have intellectual resources that we can deploy to our advantage. And we need a leader who can say, look into the crowd and pick one person up and say, you can help me to succeed, or you can help me to succeed, and put them together to bring success. And it begins with voting for that right leader. And I see Nana downgrade before I do, who has a proven record not to be corrupt, never will be corrupt, who has a proven record to love his country, to serve his people. Let's give him a chance.
So that is a wife of MPP running mate Samira Bawumia there, speaking to our Eastern Regional correspondent Maxwell Kudeko. And that's how we wrap up the show. We hope you enjoyed it. Join us same time tomorrow. I'm Marba Kumson.